In some circles, there's a saying that America is the muscle, but Britain is the brains. That is probably a jump to conclusions, but it's still hard to deny the relationship between the UK and the US. In 2022, America's State Department straight up said the United States has no closer ally than the United Kingdom. Even beyond politics and economics, there's a clear cultural relationship between them. For example, out of the 3 actors who have played Spider-Man, one of America's most famous superheroes, 2 of them were British. Or even the show Ted Lasso, a show about an American football coach who goes to England and coaches an English football team. So why are these 2 countries so close? Is there even any relationship here? Or is this whole thing just a figment of our imagination? From America's side, it was arguably the British who produced much of their identity. The entire US political system, from federalism to limited presidential powers, to even things like the right to own a weapon, can arguably be traced back to America's experience under British monarchy. Even on a philosophical level, British philosophers were crucial to America's Declaration of Independence. English philosopher John Locke once said, "Life, liberty, and property." Not too different from America's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Then you have this man, Adam Smith, who was crucial to the idea of free market capitalism, a pillar of the American experience. I know Adam Smith is Scottish, but I'm considering the entirety of Great Britain. So on the American side, there was a clear connection, cultural, political, and philosophical, even if the Americans disliked their former colonizers. On the UK side, one thing we need to understand is how the British saw themselves at this time. Britain used to be an empire, but not just any empire. The British Empire was one of the largest empires in history, and all of a sudden, it was being overshadowed by its former American colony. The Americans, though, were not a terrible thing for the British. They spoke English, were, for the most part, culturally similar to the British, were committed to protecting Europe against communism, and had basically almost all the same interests as the UK. Moreover, the British, despite their colonies all over the planet, nonetheless still saw themselves as representing freedom and democracy, something the Americans also see themselves doing. This element of cultural similarity would be important, with Winston Churchill espousing, quote, fraternal association of the English-speaking peoples. Culture was important because the British would have a sort of identity crisis. Without their empire, they didn't know if they should be with Europe or America. They didn't really identify too much with the Europeans, but they also weren't Americans. And from here stems the special relationship idea. The idea that Britain, because of its own history and shared culture with the United States, can help America in its new role. As Henry Kissinger put it, Britain could magnify its influence by gearing its policies closely to those of the United States. And the Brits and the Americans were aligned on many things, in Europe, the Middle East, and East Asia. Adding on to this were 2 important leaders. The first was Ronald Reagan in America. The second was Margaret Thatcher in the UK. Thatcher and Reagan were both socially conservative and both very, very proud of their countries. Reagan wanted to, quote, make America great again, and Thatcher wanted to show the world that Britain still existed. And very importantly, they were both liberalists. What is liberalism? Liberalism, not liberal, is the belief in things like free markets, capitalism, low taxes, free trade, and globalization, kind of like Adam Smith, as I said earlier. In essence, you had 2 leaders in Washington and London who shared many of the same values, ideas, and culture, and were both very proud of those cultures. They both had very, very, very good relations with each other. And their leadership played a big role in establishing the era of globalization that came afterwards. So there has been some debate as to whether the special relationship still exists. The US and UK have, politically speaking, been quite divided on Iran, Ukraine, and Palestine. Some think the relationship just isn't there. The UK's ambassador to the US said America's special relationship is, quote, probably Israel. Still, in my opinion, there's still a cultural connection. For example, the image some right-wing Americans have of the UK as a socialist land run by Islamists is, in and of itself, a reflection for conservative America's care for traditional British culture and society. And on the other hand, for the King of England to make a special trip to the US and explicitly reaffirm the special relationship may also signify a British desire to stay on good terms with America. If not on a political level, then I think at least on a cultural level, there's definitely some sort of relationship. The thing is, the British have had kind of an identity issue, as I said, particularly when it comes to continental Europe. When we examine how the European Union was formed, for example, it's immediately clear that the British joined a bit late. Why were they late? Well, I mentioned that in this video, so go check it out. I think you'll like it. Until then, thanks for watching.